Hi, I'm Shelley Maurer,
And I'm Cher Emmerich. Welcome to Life Lessons from Pickleball,
where we engage with pickleball players from around the world about life on and off the court.
Thanks for joining us. Hey everyone, we are so glad you've joined us today, and we are super glad to have Daphna Robon with us, who is a very dear friend of ours and a pickleball buddy. And she was an attorney, and she was a realtor, and you were, what was the third thing you were doing?
Casualty claims adjuster.
Casualty claims adjuster, but you are now retired. When did you retire?
Happily so.
When did you retire?
Literally, it's kind of in process. I am still getting some clients reaching out to me, and I knew I wanted to retire when I was like, I'm just going to refer you out. So it's been less than a year.
Wow, me too. I was October, I retired. So yeah, pretty fun, huh?
Very much so. Because
Very
of pickleball.
Because of pickleball. That's what's filling all of our time. I don't know how I would have done it if I were working, but now, but I know I would have made it happen.
Yes.
And here she is, fresh off the pickleball court.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just played today, right?
Yeah. I did, and Shelley was there,
Yeah.
and it was a bit of an experience. So a little bit about my pickleball playing. I started about a year ago, and I've never played a sport before. I mean, never. In fact, I've always been like intimidated, and I had tried golf and I had tried tennis because it's like, you're supposed to play a sport, right? And my husband's a tennis, and they were like, play a sport, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I tried, but I just didn't like it. And then a friend of mine said that she was taking pickleball lessons, and it was right around the time that I was like, I think I want to retire. And I was like, I'm kind of a say yes person, so rather than a say no person. So it's like, hey, do you want to? Yes, I'll just kind of, it's almost like a decision that's a non-decision. I'll just jump in, and then whatever happens, happens. Well, and I want everyone listening who's never really played a sport before to know that try pickleball, because I never thought of myself as anybody who could play a sport. I never played a sport. I was always very intimidated. And as you just mentioned, we just played pickleball today. Shelley was there. And so what was interesting about this morning is that it was what's called an open play. So you show up, but you don't know exactly who you're going to be playing with. And there were men there. Okay. So my initial reaction is to be completely flipped out. Like, oh my gosh, I'm playing with men. I thought, okay, you can do this. And if you can't, so what? Right. And if you can't, so what? Because everybody is so nice. And it was great fun. So much so that I went ahead and signed up for next week.
Brilliant. Oh, nice, Daphna. And you're super good. And I mean, you just keep getting super better. Last time you played on that Monday morning, everybody was saying, man, Daphna was playing like a rock star. So
we start low,
Oh, so Daphna, you have a really fascinating history. And in fact, one of your involvements in the world is being a legacy presenter, right? So if you wouldn't mind, let's tap into that part of your story and share with our audience how you came to be Daphna.
Okay. You specifically want me to talk about my legacy? Okay. So what a legacy speaker is, so here in Seattle, we have what's called the Holocaust Center for Humanity. And it's a museum that preserves the history of the Holocaust, and not just the Holocaust, but also genocides in general, because they do have speakers. For example, I think one was a survivor of the Rwandan genocide.
Wow.
So, but my parents, I was born in Israel. My parents were both Holocaust survivors from Budapest, Hungary. And they didn't meet in Budapest, Hungary. They met after the war. They had both emigrated to Israel. And so I always knew this was a background. It was always, and I thought, I should share the story. Like, there was more and more happening in the news. There was a lot of, even nothing like compared to now, with like incredible anti-Semitism, but even before, a lot of anti-Semitism and so much racism and seeing people as others. So I'd always thought that it would be really great to share my story. And I had a friend who was a legacy speaker, and what legacy speakers do is different schools throughout the districts, or various districts, as we have a lot of districts in our area, contact the Holocaust Center for Humanity and ask for what they call a legacy speaker. So either that's somebody who's the child or grandchild of a survivor, and there actually are still a few, survivors themselves who go around. So
wow.
I just put it off and put it off and put it off. And I was at a Holocaust Center fundraiser one year, and one of their taglines is "Change begins with me." So I got a sticker, and I said, that said, "Change begins with me." And I was like, I'm going to put this on the dash of my car, and I'm not taking it off until I sit down and do the work to become a legacy speaker. And as you can imagine, it's so like emotionally wrenching, and you have to, put the story arc. Anyway, long story short, the sticker got decrepit. The next year I went to the next fundraiser, got a fresh sticker, put it on. And then honestly, what happened is COVID. And so COVID happened. It was like, okay, I'm literally like in my house now. Now's the time to go. And I'm very lucky that I have a lot of documents, and both my parents had given their recorded testimonies, so that I had that, because I didn't have all the details of the story. It's not something I discussed a lot with my parents, but yes. So now I am a legacy speaker. I've literally talked to hundreds and hundreds of school children. I'm actually doing a presentation this upcoming Sunday. So it's, thank you for asking me about that. And it's amazing, because I talk a lot in my presentation about being an upstander rather than a bystander. And I think the kids hear it. Yeah, I think a lot of the young kids these days are really listening and going to stand up when they can.
That is so cool. And I saw in one of the, and I think you even mentioned this at the presentation that Shelley and I attended, which was,
Wow.
It was very moving. And so beautifully presented. Daphna, you are an incredible speaker, and you should write a book. Okay. But you also mentioned that you dedicate your presentations to your grandma. Why?
Oh, my sweet grandma Gizzy. So she taught me how to be resilient, basically. And, I know you've heard this because you saw the presentation, but what I mentioned about my grandmother is, she had a rough life. Everything was all good and fine. She was married, big extended family, 2 children. And then, everything just exploded with her. She lost her husband, and she had 2 sons, my father and my uncle. Her son, my uncle, her parents. There are 25 people in the family, not even that extended, more immediate family, who were murdered. And so then she had to immigrate to Israel, and then she had to come to the United States. And so learning new languages and new cultures. But she was one of these women who, so joyous. So joyous, bubbly personality, super charismatic. I think even coming to the United States, people, barely speaking English, men were asking her to marry. And she wasn't like this great beauty. It was her personality. It was her joy in life. It was, she just radiated it. And so she had this personality, but then every day I would see her. She had a picture of her husband and my uncle in her apartment on the wall. And she would like say a little prayer and kind of cry a lot, not like deep sobs, but, a little teary. And then she'd kind of quickly compose herself and go back to being her joyous self. And so when you see that growing up, you're like, okay, you have to put things where they, not forget them, but you have to put them where they need to be, so you can go on and try and be joyful in your life.
Kind of compartmentalize it's so sweet that she gave herself the time to grieve each day. Yes. And then said, okay, that needs to just be set aside a little bit while I move into the world. Yes. And then did that with joy. Come on. That's remarkable.
I think she wanted to really honor them every day too, and never have them be forgotten.
Oh, that is so
what a
sweet.
role model.
Wow. What a role model.
Yes, very much so.
And then you growing up with that, it sounds like with your grandma, she had the joy and the personality, but there was a lot of wounding with your folks, I think, with your mom and all. And so you had kind of the balance of one who was more the obvious walking wounded. Everybody's a walking wounded person,
Yes.
but your mom especially was a walking wounded,
Yes.
and your grandma walking wounded, but found a way somehow to make it livable, find the joy, the beauty, the
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. You know, people, I used to be angry at my mother, to be honest
Mm.
with you, but now that I'm older and have more life perspective, you realize that everyone's kind of just doing their best, right? And she was just a young child. And so think of how traumatizing all
Oh,
that is. So
oh,
I've learned to be more forgiving
wow,
towards
that's
her.
huge. That's
Well,
huge.
you kind of have, I mean, yeah, time and self-reflection and
Yeah. In fact, you invited me to be a part of the Musar group.
yes,
And one of the chapters of the book that we're reading was about forgiveness, and another one about
yes,
gratitude. It makes me think of your grandma.
yes.
Say a little bit about this Musar too.
Okay, so it's interesting how I came to learn about, I've heard it pronounced Musser
Almost.
and Musar. I've heard it
Okay.
pronounced both, and I don't know which is the correct way.
And I didn't say either one, so I was totally wrong.
There's as many ways, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how you say it. So what it is, I actually found out about it because I heard a lecturer speak about something else. But this lecturer, her name is Ruchi Koval, said, "Oh, I wrote a book called Soul Construction if you want to buy it." And I thought, whatever you are saying, I am reading it or I am listening because you're fantastic. So the name of the book is Soul Construction. It's on Amazon. And so I've come to find out it's based on the principles of Musar. And what Musar is, it's actually been around, I think, maybe even since like Babylonian time. But then it got more popular, I think, in the 1800s in Lithuania. I think there was a Jewish rabbi who kind of brought it more to everyday life and to everyday people. So it wasn't just like everybody could study it. And so it's really about character development. So the study of Musar, you're always focusing on a different character trait, as you mentioned, like forgiveness, gratitude, patience.
Patience.
Patience is silence, acceptance. There's a whole lot of them. There's, I think, literally hundreds of them that you can study. And I thought, well, this is really something not just to read the book. It's really something to read with other people and discuss it. So yes, I started this Thursday morning. We meet at a little local breakfast place, and there's a group of us who meet. We read the chapters, and we each bring our own perspective. It's so cool because everybody in the group is really different. We've got a therapist in the group, we have a nurse in the group, we have video production, myself. Somebody worked for a former consulting firm. I mean, somebody who is from Turkey. Somebody from Costa Rica. So it's just really fun.
It really is.
That sounds really fun. And not to mention everything I heard you talk about really applies to the pickleball court.
Absolutely.
Resilience,
Everything.
patience,
Absolutely.
silence.
Well, it's funny you say that. So I'm trying to keep my cat out of the screen. He's wanting
don't.
attention.
No,
You're such a
we'd love
beautiful
to see your
cat. Let the
cat.
cat come in. Yeah.
But it's there's actually a lot of patience dealing pickleball, and I was thinking about that and how it relates to Musser is that in patience there's like your stimulus and then there's response. And like my friend who's a psychotherapist pointed out that Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, I don't know if y'all know that book. He was a Holocaust survivor and a psychotherapist. And he says there's the stimulus and then there's that space in between the stimulus and the response. And you get to choose that response. And that leads into being patient. And I think like a lot of times with pickleball, you've got the stimulus, which is the ball coming towards you, right? And you're like, right? And it takes practice, right? So you see the ball coming, and then you have to assess. There's that minute kind of like in between the stimulus and the stress. You're thinking, okay, what do I do? What do I do? And then you react. Well, my friend, her name is Lily, who's in the Whistler group, who's a therapist. She said, if you actually have like a certain habit in that you would like to get rid of, like let's say you're quick to anger, if you train your brain to react a different way, so you just tell yourself, I'm going to count to 5 before I say anything, or I'm going to picture whatever technique you need. I'm going to think of warm sunshine and a beach before I respond, whatever it is. Before you respond, after about 3 months, your brain, if they take an image of your brain, and then 3 months later, after you've made those changes, your brain will actually look different.
Whoa.
Isn't that amazing?
Whoa.
So
You mean that if I can train my brain when I see the ball coming to stop and say, where should I put the ball?
Well,
Like, you mean
exactly, because I
Yeah.
know Coach Brad, who was our coach this morning, it's muscle memory
Yeah.
in your brain.
It's
and in
wiring.
your body, your brain body reaction.
Mhm.
And so that's exactly what it is. So like they say, do drills, right? Why do you do drills? Because if you keep doing the drill, when you're hit with that stimulus, you're automatically, and it's because you've trained, it's not automatic. I mean, it becomes automatic because you practiced it. It wasn't
Exactly.
automatic 3 months ago.
That's right. It's right. It rewires our brain, which then changes the way our muscles move. It's that muscle memory with the rewiring. It's all combined, is certainly with pickleball.
And what's so cool is that if they were to take our brain scan, our brain would actually look different, which
I
is
think
just
that's so cool.
That is cool.
It's
That is
amazing.
so cool.
It's amazing.
You mentioned that your grandma taught you resilience, and that feels like something related to pickleball too.
I was actually thinking that as far as being resilient, and what is being resilient? Like, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's really how we talk to ourselves, right? Like my grandmother must have been talking to herself. That's what being resilient is. It's the conversations we have with ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So pickleball, definitely. I don't know what y'all's experience is, but for sure, I mean, I've seen your journey, and so I know we've all kind of journeyed together. I don't know what your opinion is on the conversations you have with yourself.
Well, I had that experience you did today. I found myself in one game where it was myself and 3 guys, and I thought, oh, and the first few points, because I was nervous, I didn't play so great, but I was very resilient. I didn't, what I think a year ago, I would have just melted and, just got worse or wanted to walk off the court. But I actually did some really good self-talk and got myself back in the game and started playing. So I feel like in that sense, pickleball's really helped me become more
What were you
resilient.
telling yourself? Am I allowed to ask a question?
Oh,
What?
heck
Yeah,
yeah.
of
This is a
course.
conversation.
Yeah, because I actually thought, I could, to myself, I could melt right now. One thought came, maybe I could just grab someone else to come replace me. No, I thought, I can do this. I know I can do this. And I just kept telling myself, I can do this. And then I would say, okay, think about where you're going to put the ball. Just think. I just kept, just positive self-talk, trying to help myself, give myself tips, instead of melting, just like I'm sure like your grandma was constantly talking to herself on working on how to be joyful like she was. That's just incredible to me with everything she had in her life.
And what you said about, I'm going to think about where I'm going to put the ball goes back to our conversation about stimulus and response.
Yeah.
You gave yourself that space to not react, but to think what the outcome is that you wanted to achieve.
Which is something that applies to parenting too, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Although not always the outcome we want necessarily, but yeah.
Or giving ourselves that moment of deciding how to respond.
Yeah.
And definitely we learn resilience in
Don't we?
parenting.
Oh, yeah.
It all ties in together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Resilience and self-confidence. Mom, you're wearing that?
Yeah.
Yes, I am, and I'm not going to take any guff.
Yeah.
Daphne, you're also a what is it, conciliator for the Belgian
Oh,
Catholic
I'm not
Resolution?
doing that right now, but
Oh, what is
yes,
it?
I was there's a dispute resolution center in the town next to us, and it's a really cool program actually. So if like two neighbors had a dispute, or if a business had a dispute with another neighbor, as long as they were in this town, and they actually did it for the town I live in, but it's just not as well advertised here. But let's say a lot of the calls would be things like, my neighbor's has a big tree that's right next to a fence, and I constantly have all these leaves in my yard, which I don't feel like picking up. Or my neighbor has a light, like a security light on their house.
Oh boy.
And it is, going right into my bedroom window, and they don't seem to want to do anything about it. Or, things that neighbors experience. And so I actually did some volunteer mediation work too, back right after college. You take, and anybody can do this now, you take a 40-hour course, it's still the same, and then you can do some volunteer work. But so interesting. So the conciliation work wasn't mediation, because the way it worked is we were on the phone. So I would talk to this person and then get their perspective, and then I would call the other neighbor, let's say if it was the neighbor, and we'd kind of work it out that way. And then if it didn't resolve, then they could go to mediation and get it resolved. But I'll tell you my two interesting takeaways from that.
Yeah.
One is that frequently, whatever the issue is, the leaves, the this, that was not the issue. It was just not the issue. There was frequently some kind of backstory. Somebody had felt hurt in some way at some point. And so the leaves were just a way to I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but the leaves weren't the problem. It was whatever the hurt had been in the past. And then also that people just want to be heard. That was another takeaway. I remember one time I was talking to this woman who had filed the complaint. Let's just call it the complaint. And I don't think I could ever reach the other person. Like, I think I left messages, but just could never reach them. But I listened to her. And I remember, and so I basically didn't solve her problem, because I couldn't even talk to the other person. And she was like, "You've been so helpful. You have really helped me. Thank you." And I thought, okay, that is the power of listening, because I've actually done nothing other than listen to her. And so that really taught me the power of listening, and that people want to tell their story and be heard and acknowledged.
That's beautiful. Wow, what a powerful opportunity to bring people together. And that point about, isn't that true in most of our relationships, that once we get to a point where we're letting our emotions take over, whatever we're addressing usually isn't really what's underlying. It's like, you don't pick this up, or you never clean the dishes, or whatever. It's never about that. It's usually about, well, I mean, maybe sometimes it is, but usually it's about, I don't feel valued. I don't feel heard. I don't feel loved, whatever.
Right.
But we'll nip.
I feel taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And the dish in the sink is just a symptom of that.
Yeah.
It's what's in my face right now. Yes.
Yeah. So how does that come out on the court?
Ooh, how does that come out on the court? That's a good question. I think it would go back to talking to yourself and not maybe generalizing. So, for example, like Shelley, when you saw those men, it flared up this emotion in you, right? But it wasn't actually necessarily based in reality. It had to do with whatever preconceived ideas you had about these men, because you probably didn't. I mean, maybe you had seen them play in a prior game and knew their skill level, but we were making assumptions, just like in the conciliation mediation, but people are making these assumptions, right? And so we have to step back and think, okay, I'm not going to make that assumption. I'm going to talk to myself. I'm going to deal with with the facts as they actually come to be, and not be clouded by the garbage in my head.
Right.
That's good.
Right. Because
That's-
as you were saying that I think my underlying thing was I just told myself, well, I'm not as good as they are.
Mm.
That was my underlying fear.
Oh, I had that
Assumption.
going on a lot, Shelley. And then I'm like thinking, if I say to someone, well, I'm just kind of and they're like, oh, no, you were fine. And my immediate thing is to think, oh, they're just saying that. They're just saying that. They don't mean it. They're just being nice, you know? And then I'm thinking, like, why do I do that to myself, you know?
That's a good question. Why do we do that?
Yeah, well, I need some therapy, I guess. I don't know.
One thing on the court, it's easy to assume that I'd be doing better if that partner of mine was doing better, or vice versa, that I'm making it worse for that person because I'm not up to par, and fear of being blamed, or fear of feeling guilty, or blaming the other person. And what I noticed Monday when I was playing some really good people, and I did okay. You know, my team did okay, but what I realized is we didn't do as well as we might have, except that I kept popping it up. So I'd get the ball back, but I'd give it right to the opponent so they could slam it back to us. But if I don't think about the fact that I just gave that ball to somebody and then they hit it back and my partner misses it, I could easily say, wow, she missed it. You know, we would have gotten that. No, I made it possible for that other person to hit it back to us really hard. So being aware of our own role in situations, and being willing to acknowledge when we are choosing to do or say things that might not be in the best interest of everyone involved. That awareness, I'm noticing, is really important when I'm on the court. Self-awareness, awareness of the opponents. They say, you know, watch them, figure out where they're going to hit, how they're going to hit before you respond back again. That's that stimulus and waiting.
Right.
A lot of these life lessons on the court, or life lessons in life, they kind of go back and forth between life.
Absolutely. And like watching the ball, I mean, one of the things I was thinking about, like, what do I got out of pickleball? And I'm thinking focus. So I've always, again, like I always thought I should play a sport. It's like everybody's meditating. Oh, you should meditate. You should meditate. You should meditate. And I'm like, oh, I really need to meditate, because apparently that's, you know, the key to whatever.
Yeah.
And so I actually was like, okay, I don't know if I can meditate, but I did. I think it was like Oprah Winfrey and, I forget the guy's name. Yes. And they had some guided meditation. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to put myself in a dark room and this and that. And, you know, seriously, 2 minutes in, they were talking like, nah, 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 nah. And I was like, I don't even know what I was saying. I'm like, oh, it's over. I didn't hear a word they said, you know, but what I find is that in pickleball, and I'm definitely needing to improve even more, and what's so great about it is that you have to focus. And it's kind of like a meditation. If meditation means that you were in the moment, that you were not thinking about anything else, and that you were focused, I find that pickleball does that. Because like you just mentioned, Sherry, like you have to look at the ball, you have to watch the ball, and I'll be like, oh yeah, watch the ball. Watch the ball. You know, even that simple thing that seems like, of course you're watching the ball, but you're not necessarily watching the ball.
So true.
Or if you hit the ball and then you think, oh, I need to go get groceries, and you realize you've just lost that focus for a second, and then it's coming back at you, and you're like, oh no, okay, either you miss it or you just pop it up, or you don't know where to hit it, right? Because you've lost that focus. So you're right. You really do have to keep training your mind to stay focused.
Stay focused.
So there we go. Pickleball's meditation.
I like
Well, it kind of is in a way for me, because as I'm improving, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about other things less and less, because I'm more knowledgeable about what I need to be doing on the court. I think when you're less knowledgeable, you're not as aware. Like I should be thinking, like for example, the coach today said, well, basically however where your shoulder that's closest to the net is pointing is going to kind of direct where the ball goes. And so, and I was missing some shots because I was too open and I should have, it doesn't matter. Anyway.
Oh, no,
So
it
it's like,
does matter,
now I got to
Daphna.
think about that.
It-
And,
Thank you. I needed that tip. It does
Yeah.
matter.
so if you're actually engaged there, it is meditative.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because they say, meditation when you're walking in the woods or whatever is making us be in the moment. And that's huge. Yeah.
And another cool thing about pickleball and learning the skill, especially as if we're retired or something, is I was reading there was a study that if you're learning a new skill that also has you being physically active, so you're learning golf, you're playing pickleball, it's a skill, it really helps your brain, and it helps your brain stay healthy. And just like, crossword puzzles and things like that do too, but the combination of learning something physical is really excellent for your brain. It taps into another part of your brain.
Well, that's probably why we're geniuses now.
That is. And that's another thing to tell my husband as I walk out the door every single day with my pickleball. Why he shouldn't get frustrated.
I'm just getting smarter.
I'm getting smarter and smarter.
Has it affected playing pickleball and the things that you've learned on the court or the things you've learned at home and taken to the court? Has it influenced your family life, Daphna?
Well, yes, actually, in a good way. So my husband is a huge tennis player.
Oh, yeah.
And, but I have gotten him to start doing some drills and things like that with me. I don't know if I don't think he's at this point going to make the switch, but sometimes we played a few times. And so prior to this, like we'll go bike riding together, we'll go skiing together, but how much are we going skiing or going bike riding? So this is something that we can actually do together on a more regular basis, and we just didn't have that before. So it's just really nice that way.
How about your kids? Are they interested at all?
Oh, I think they think it's a old person sport, even though I tell them, that when I've gone to some of these open plays, or even like the group on Monday that we play with, there's young people playing, and they're not playing it because they can't physically do something else. They're playing it because it's a really fun game.
And they're good at it.
And they're so good at it.
And what, the best player in the world isn't Anna Lee 18?
Oh, that's right. Is she 18 yet? I don't think she's.
I don't know if she is yet. 17
no,
or
I
18.
think she. Yeah. Anna Lee Waters. Wow. Very cool. Well, I know you were thinking about life lessons before we started this. Have we covered all your life lessons that you thought of, Daphna?
Well, I'd say confidence would be one we touched on a little bit, but I've really, and I think that's one of the reasons that I should stop saying, we all say, don't say you're sorry, but that I say sorry a lot, or that I can have negative self-talk. But like today, actually, and also this Monday group that a friend of mine was gracious, that you both play in, it was gracious enough. That has really done a lot for my confidence. And I remember the first time I played Full Confession with this Monday group, or maybe it was the second time, I just got so upset at one point, and I was just like really upset, almost ready to, oh yes, Jelly, I was. And then I thought, no, like it's gonna, and now I just love it. I love it. And what cool thing about pickleball is the community is everybody is so nice. Like so nice. I can't even believe how, and that's another thing of her life lessons that I wanted to talk about in this podcast, which I think is unique to pickleball, is I've noticed how encouraging, I don't know if another thing that I participated in, and also with like a Hungary woman, we were also genuinely happy for another person for doing well. I mean, I just haven't experienced that, but literally, if I'm playing with like one of y'all, I'm like, "Great, that was so good. Let's," and we're also encouraging. Like, let's take a moment to say, "Yay!"
Yeah.
And I love that we all enjoy when somebody else does well.
I do too. And I'm really glad you mentioned that, because if that is in our relationships, in our homes, in our work, everywhere we go, it's not that common that people can feel secure enough in themselves to be able to celebrate somebody else's success. But we do that in pickleball. And when we have that in our intimate relationships, there's nothing better. When we can each celebrate each other's success and not feel diminished by it at all. That's
Right.
huge.
Yeah. And I don't know if any of your other, just briefly, I don't know if your other guests have talked about this, but one thing I did want to mention, if anybody's listening to this and starting, I mean, so basically I was thinking, what am I going to do? Retired, and I thought, well, who am I going to play with? There's nobody to play with. I don't really know any, but it just kind of happened. So I would say, just take a lesson.
Yeah.
And then you will meet those people, and because they also are looking for people to play with. And now I can say that we all met about a year ago, and we're all good friends now. We're going to happy hour. We are, it just, it has changed my life completely and totally.
That's a lovely way to sign off, because that's so encouraging. And Shelley has mentioned that she was scared to death to get into pickleball. I wasn't afraid of the game as much as just being nervous about being with a whole new group of people that I didn't know. And it's such an easy way to move into a whole new way of being. It's a wonderful game.
And the fun thing too about it is, wherever you go, if you're traveling, you can always go play pickleball and find a community.
Great point.
It's fun too. Yeah.
The paddle's easy to pack.
It is. Very easy.
Well, Daphna, we're both so appreciative that you joined us today, and that you shared about your family's history, especially in this time in our world right now. I mean, it's always been an issue of anti-Semitism and the crisis in the world. One of the shows, we had a guest on who is an expert in crisis management, and Lorraine Schneider. And it's just that time in our world where we want everyone, what was your term? Stand up or?
Oh, an upstander rather than a bystander.
Be an upstander. Be an upstander on the pickleball court. Be an upstander in life.
Yes.
In our families, in our communities, in the world.
And I want to thank you both for, I was so excited about today. So thank you. This is so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we want to thank everybody who's been listening and watching. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we look forward to our conversation next week. Bye-bye.